Imagine a world where stolen data and cutting-edge malware and even cybercrime as a service is just one click away. These underground communities, these so-called marketplaces, are the topic of today's Threat Talks, the deep dive.
Welcome to Threat Talks. Let's delve deep into the dynamic world of cybersecurity.
My guest of today is Michele Campobasso, who is a cybersecurity researcher, and for his thesis on the underground marketplaces, he dove deep into these marketplaces and did a research there. His thesis was also instrumental to brought down the Genesis marketplace back in April 2022. So, Michele, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Great to have you here. Before we kick off and really dive deep in these marketplaces, what exactly is an underground community? I remember back in the day when we still had IRC, so that was, I think, the mid-90s. We could find some places there that offer some content that was maybe not completely legal. But what is an underground community today?
Yeah, so underground communities today, following our IRC, mostly are forums, underground forums that you can find both on the clear web and the deep web. And as you may remember them already from the mid-2000s, those are just websites that are organized in sections where people can discuss there, meet, and have a chat. You can talk about, I don't know, your collection of post stamps, or you can talk about malware, for example. And this is pretty much how they look like. Many of the underground forums, we can talk a bit better about them later. But also today, we can witness also communities that are hosted on Telegram, for example, which are Telegram groups or channels, or even Discord servers. Although it's not yet clear how much do they really matter, because the big theme are forums. And forums more or less are places, where people meet, exchange ideas, but trade also illicit products. And depending on how they're structured, they have more mechanisms or less mechanisms to verify who's who. But yeah, maybe we can talk about that later. And finally, there are also specialized marketplaces. So we have both forum-based marketplaces and other marketplaces that may look like more of a e-commerce kind of website. All right.
Okay, so it's fair to say they really evolved from IRC to almost every technology that's out there. So you have the telegrams, we have the dark web, which you need an onion router for to access these marketplaces in forums. So there's a lot of they really evolved from the IRC. Is there a trend where they are heading to, or is it really the deep web where they are now reside?
That's interesting, because the thing that IRC lost popularity already in the somewhat early days of underground communities. The reason for that is that it is hard to assess who you're talking with. On IRC, you just connect to some marketplace, to a channel, and then you say, "Oh, I'm called Rob. I'm called Michele," and you log in. But there is no way to assess if you're actually the person you're saying you are. Whereas on forums, especially on the more advanced one, on the more mature ones, there are mechanisms to verify who you are, and that's why forums gained more momentum in that regard. Today we are seeing an increase in the last 5 years of adoption of Telegram and Discord. From our understanding of how cybercrime works on underground communities like forums, it is not yet clear why or to what extent those communities work, those novel communities on Discord or Telegram, but something is happening there. So it still matter for discussion to understand really their impact.
Okay, and proving, or at least that they can check who you are and that you actually are who you say you are, is also to keep the researchers out, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. As a researcher, I have to say it's a very fascinating topic.
So, and looking at these underground communities, we know now at least where to find them. But what places are worth monitoring, and what kind of data are we looking for? I think you were not looking for drugs or weapons.
No,
so you had
indeed,
a specific
indeed.
scope.
No, yeah, that's right. So removing drugs, weapons, and all other nasty services that you can get access to, and focusing mostly on the technological side of crime. Marketplaces, it depends. So there are marketplaces that are more generic, more wide in scope. They cover different products. Whereas there are others that are more specialized. But in general, we can say that among the products you can find there, you can find malware, remote access tools, exploit kits, and phishing kits. Although those two are less frequent nowadays. Maybe phishing kits not that infrequent, but exploit kits not anymore. Of course, evergreen credit cards. Credit cards are gonna be there forever, and but services are most prominent today, as you mentioned, even in the intro, with Cybercrime-as-a-Service. They include now, you can find, for example, bulletproof hosting as a service. So those servers that are very hard to take down because they are hosted in not so cooperative jurisdictions with law enforcement, but also proxies, SSH tunnels, VNC access to compromised systems. A lot of initial access, so to say, but also malware on subscription basis and services to improve, for example, the stealth of your malware with obfuscation, even full stack solutions for ransomware. If you want to be a ransomware operator, you can even buy literally everything, even the infrastructure to have a chat with your victims.
If I want to set up my own Cybercrime-as-a-Service or malware-as-a-Service, I can buy the full stack on these underground communities.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You buy your subscription like you do with Disney Plus or you name it. You pay the fee on a monthly basis. If you take it longer, it will have also discount. So that's nice, I guess.
Is it fair to say that these Cybercrime-as-a-Service or these subscription-based models are a trend nowadays on these markets?
Yes, absolutely. We passed from what was the trend in the mid 2000s, early 2010s, of selling the 0-day, the exploit, to a verified buyer, 1 to 3 people, a few people, just to keep the competitive edge of your customer. But the sellers and producers of those things quickly realized that was they were losing control on their intellectual property. So now if you sell just a service based on that, you have way more control and you can make way more money out of it. So
yeah, you have a returning revenue, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And also allows you to get access to a market where people with other players with less spending ability. So you don't need to sell the 0-day for 200,000 euros. You can sell a subscription for it for 500 euros per month. It is way more convenient.
Where we started was that these underground communities were mainly found on the dark web, and some of them in channels on Telegram. But for your research, you dove into, if I recalled correctly, over 30 different marketplaces.
Yeah.
How do you find them? Because you cannot simply Google for them.
Well, not entirely correct. You can Google for some of these things.
Okay.
It is surprisingly easy to find some links, at least for the most known communities out there. Or even if you just look at some reports from the industry, from the threat intelligence companies, you can find something. And but most importantly, from there, it is a matter of doing snowball. So you go first on the first couple of communities that very likely are going to be free to access. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, and you start reading. That was at least my experience over the course of my research. The majority of markets I ended up knowing was just by looking at what people were saying. So it is a very manual investigative job. Literally, you have to be the guy with the fake goggles and the mustache and go there and say, "Oh, what's happening here? Oh, it's interesting." And you read what they talk about, and then you see what are the marketplaces they are referencing to. They say, "Oh, this is a bad market. Oh, this is the good old one." and you then you can learn how
There's
to
also,
go
I think, a lot
further.
of competition between markets, and then on one market they say this one offers a better price or has more products, or
That happens not a lot with forums, for example,
okay.
but happens with specialized marketplaces. So there are marketplaces that sell credit cards. There are marketplaces that sell initial access. And within the same product category, there is competition. You can see they don't blame the others. They don't say, oh, they sell the bad stuff, we sell the good stuff. They say we sell the best stuff
Yeah,
for
of
the
course.
best price you can possibly get.
Yeah, you should
Which
always believe in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, big time.
So, and you said, okay, the first marketplaces you joined were not checking your identity, etc. There was not much of checking involved.
Uh-huh.
But how do you join let's say, the more specific ones where they like to check your identity, and you need to have a good identity, I think, and maybe even a proven track record, and there's a lot of time involved with that.
Yes, indeed. So to some extent, for many markets, it is sufficient just to be able to cross-reference to another market. It might be just open market, and you are registered there from quite some time, where quite some time can be 1 year, 2 years, something like that at least. And you show that you have some activity in the community, so that you are not just a lurker, you're not just someone with 0 posts or 1 post, but you contributed somehow to the community. Eh, of course, when it comes to contributing to a community, it is a bit tricky on how to achieve that. Most of the time, it is sufficient just to participate to banter sections or to give publicly available information to newbies that are asking, how do I keep secure, blah, blah, blah. And you can just lecture them about OPSEC and other things, which is still valuable information, but you're doing nothing that is illegal or facilitating cybercrime. Um,
As a
so
researcher, I can imagine it's really a tricky part when you also need to contribute to these forums.
yes,
There's a lot of
yes.
ethics involved. So what can I say? What can I not say? It's a slippery slope, I can imagine.
You don't want to help someone writing you malware. You want to say that, yeah, you should care about your OPSEC, for example. So these are things that are okay to do, for example. Then there are, of course, other places where you need to buy your access in, and this is the kind of thing that is, again, very tricky as a researcher, especially when I was back in academia. Paying access is no good. But if it's cheap enough, probably you're just giving a drop into the ocean, so it doesn't make a big difference if you're paying just a few tens of dollars for getting access. Different if they're asking you $500.
Yeah, then it goes quickly. So
Mm-mm-mm.
you talked about OPSEC as an advice you gave to these communities, something
Uh-huh.
you can post freely without questioning your moral standpoints. But
Uh-huh.
what about your own OPSEC? If you are going to dive in these underground communities, they want to check your identity, and you also want to, I think, protect yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So when doing my day-to-day job, the basic hygiene, the standard prophylaxis is just to connect via VM using Tor browser. So let's say another thing. There are 2 classes of risks. One is to reveal that you're connecting, for example, from a threat intelligence company or from a research institution, whatever. And that is bad, because all by sudden you are linking you to an adversary, and your account will very likely be terminated. And the second risk is some repercussion that you can have by revealing who you actually are. Um, I would say that the risk is more connected to the moment in when you publish your findings, and that was our case when we were studying a market that we were talk opening about. Probably is Genesis market. Um, but when we were studying it, the market was still alive, so we published a couple of papers about it, but we censored the name because we didn't want to be on the tits of someone. Um, Now that those guys are, that the market is being closed from law enforcement, 11 law enforcement agencies were involved in that. I mean, we are not their concern, okay? So it is a bit of a trade-off that you evaluate your personal exposure in that regard. But OPSec, yeah, VMs, spin a VM with your browser, make sure that you can connect immediately with Tor, automatically with Tor, and a VPN, just to be on the safe side, and just do the stuff you're supposed to do on that VM. Don't do anything else that is not relevant.
Okay, yeah, for your research, if I recall correctly, you also make use of a crawler, so to do things more quickly.
Yep.
But isn't it really hard to create a crawler if you also need to have all these identities, track records that you're actually participating in these forums? How did you solve that? I don't want to go too deep into the crawler. I saw it was open source, so everyone who wants to can read your paper and go to the software. But I'm just curious, how can you make a piece of software that creates all these identities without being caught that it is just an automated identity?
Yeah. So the crawler was using already the identities that I created. So it was simply benefiting from the manual job that I did before. The crawler task was to not be detected as a crawler. So I was first creating my identities. I was infiltrating into the communities. Once I had a stable foothold in that community, then I could say to the crawler, okay, your turn. You take the wheel and you go. And the goal of the crawler was to mimic human interaction. So going from the simple thing of going slow or taking time to read content, not to click many things together, explore just limited sections of a market every time. That was one of the things. We were using, the crawler uses also a browser, differently from many other crawlers that just are command line tools, but humans use browsers to navigate internet. Surprise, surprise. And
It wasn't enough to just use the user agent setting, or
it's not just that, because you have also JavaScript that is being executed
yeah,
on
makes
your
sense.
browser, and command line tools cannot do that. There are things that manipulate the aesthetics of a page, and it can react to that. It can trigger other HTTP requests. So you want to make sure that you are behaving really like a human would do. The traffic you're generating looks like really the one of a human.
Okay, and so we're now at the point that we have infiltrated the marketplaces. We get the threat intel out. We see what malware is being offered, maybe data sets, etc. What kind of cyber threat intel is most valuable? And also, what I'm also wondering is, how can we make this actionable cyber threat intel where we can actually, hopefully, prevent ourselves better?
Well, depends on the market that you're looking at. What are the things you're trying to defend against? But for example, being on underground communities allows you to see what are new products and trending products. So that in that regard can help you to improve your posture. It can help you to understand what are the new threats out there. You can see some marketplaces might be marketplaces where leaks are sold, and you can see that maybe your company might have been targeted, for example. So that helps. That helps you to be exactly where things are happening, the right moment they're happening before they become a large-scale threat. Also, it allows you to see, by looking at what are the new trends, allows you to see things that have not happened yet to you, but might be happening to other companies. So being there gives you a competitive edge, I would say, to better prepare and not be caught. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. In your research paper, I believe you call that innovative offensive security tools. I really like that term. Is there any innovation you saw that you think, okay, this is really I saw it already on the marketplace, but not yet in the real world, I would say. But it's certainly something that's coming. Is there any example you have?
Yes. So there was the market that I mentioned for Genesis Market. That was at the time that we were exploring some underground marketplaces, that was a very interesting kind of product. They were selling a new product that was combining stolen information that you can get from InfoStealer malware with a subscription-based model. So those guys figured out two things. The first is that when you steal information with phishing kits, for example, that are so simply credentials are not of good use many times today because we have also risk-based authentication. That is basically a system, is basically what Google does when you are logging in from a new device using the correct credentials. Google says, hey, this is a new device. Can you please unlock your phone and press H2? This is not something that only Google does. And criminals understood that. So they understood that if they can collect as many information as possible from the browser environment of a victim, the use of credentials is going to be more successful, very likely more successful. And the other smart idea that those guys had is to make it of a subscription-based model. So someone compromises the system of a victim. They steal information, so credentials. They steal also metadata of the browser of the victim to mimic it. Plus, they keep persistence because cookies expire, because passwords may be changed, and so you get updates over time. That was a really not innovative product. They were the first in their league to do so. They were providing also with all the software needed to do the impersonation attack. So that was great to
So the
witness.
maintainers basically make sure that the credentials that were leaked would still work after a few months when you probably bought a subscription to use those. Okay.
Yeah.
That's also a bit scary.
Yeah. In practice, they were not lasting that long, but they were lasting for more than a few days. So that was impressive.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how long it was ago that you were really into the markets, but are there any other trends do you see that were going on?
Other trends in terms of trending products, apart from the usual Cybercrime-as-a-Service products, I don't think I recall anything dramatically different from what happened within the last couple of years, honestly. So still on the same line with initial access brokers, carding. Those are the evergreens.
Maybe it's fair to say that the trend is everything should come as a service nowadays.
That's for sure. It is way more convenient than selling the bare product.
And you already mentioned that it can give you a competitive advantage if you see what's going on, and especially, of course, if your company name is on there.
Yeah.
Should every company monitor the dark web or these underground communities, and especially should they also monitor specifically for the name, or is that a bit useless?
Yeah. So first, going to the latter question, to your second question, monitoring for just the name is not enough. When I was looking at, especially for initial access brokers and leak providers, what you would find many times is that if you're a public institution, then you would find your name out there. So the Ministry of Defense of Malaysia, and you find the name and you can actually look it up. But when it comes to companies, it's very unlikely you will find the name. You will find, company working in the IT sector, or manufacturing in the Netherlands, in Germany. Their revenue for the year 2022 was that, and the size of the connected systems is that. So they give you a little bit of an idea of what is this company, how big is the company.
So they give you the metadata of the company, and then you need to decide if you want to go on with the purchase or not.
Yeah, and then you get in touch with them, and you may ask some more information. Very likely they're not going to tell you the name of the company, but you can make some inference in that regard. This is the case, for example, for initial access brokers. Going back to the first question, that should every company monitor? I think that I would rely on threat intelligence companies because it is very complicated to do. It requires expert knowledge. It requires time to infiltrate underground communities and keep a stable foothold. Because one thing that I didn't say before is that the underground is very wide. Is very big, but the majority of the stuff you see out there is irrelevant. It's very easy to go on whatever hack forum you can think of, but the majority of that stuff very likely is not going to be a real threat. You can find malware that costs as little as $10 now. $10 for something that will allow me to ask for millions to a company, that doesn't make any sense. Leaks for a company that costs $10, it is for sure they are at least 10 years old. So companies should rely on someone that understands actually how those or how this ecosystem works, because not everything you see there, not everything that shines is actually gold out there. So that would be my advice. I think that everyone should be wary that things that happen there might have an impact on them, but I would leave it to professionals, honestly.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, especially the time involved, and then of course the expertise you need. Um, you said everyone should do it. Or is there not a certain size of a company that you would say then it makes sense, because involving a third party to monitor for you the dark web also comes with cost involved. Is it more of interest for global companies, for example, or government agencies, or doesn't that matter that much?
No, I think that it applies to pretty much everyone. So yes and no. The short answer is yes and no. In practice, of course, if you are public sector or you are like a research facility, high tech lab, of course you're going to be more exposed to multiple threats models. But in practice, even for a small company, the enablers are very similar to some extent, or especially those that allow you to do the initial access. So everyone is susceptible to phishing. Everyone is susceptible to clicking on the wrong link and getting infected with info stealers. So it is true that not everyone should be concerned on how the threat originates, how the threat actor works, and just some basic hygiene using your computer together with some security solution can be enough. But the source of the risk remains the same. So I believe that monitoring underground communities is the thing that threat intelligence companies do. Then, depending on your risk, on your exposure, on how exposed are you on risk, you may decide to go for a fully fledged solution that gives you insights on how threat happens on the underground, or you just buy just an antivirus. But behind the threat intelligence companies should know more about how the underground works.
Okay, that makes sense. That brings me also to the last question. So you took a lot of time to research these underground communities. What would be your advice for cyber threat intel researchers that would like to start with investigating these dark webs or these marketplaces?
Yeah, I'll share my take on it. I think that the best way of approaching it is to get your hands dirty. There is no other way, in my opinion. So my recommendation is to spin your Tor browser into VM and start looking for underground forums links online, and start to get also a little bit of the gut feeling, to develop this gut feeling of being suspicious of what you look. I read a lot, see how people interact. Always doubt that who's in front of you is posing as the person that is saying they are, and and uh, and be curious. Because for me, the thing that helped me a lot was to spend a lot of time reading and going through the chats of those people that were talking about, oh, this is the best place for that and that and that. But then you see that someone that says something that has, 200 messages and is being on this marketplace for 10 years, writes once, but it's a very authoritative information. Whereas someone that has 2 messages that registered yesterday, very likely is just another Mr. Nobody. So also understanding who are the big fishes it's fun. Making it actionable, it is not fun. I can tell that. Writing crawlers and keeping a stable foothold in underground communities is complicated. But yeah, I can reference to some works. Maybe I can send you some links so we can put somewhere that give you a little bit of a compass on how to move into the ecosystem.
Okay, yeah, that would be great if you could send us some links. Then we'll make sure that they end up with the show notes so everyone can follow up on them. So that leads me for thanks for joining today, and
my pleasure.
I hope to see some more work of you. I really enjoyed reading your paper. And also thanks for our listeners. If you like what you just saw or heard, just like and subscribe, and that keeps helping us spreading the word even further. So with that, thank you, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Threat Talks, a podcast by Onto It Cybersecurity and AMS-IX. Did you like what you heard? Do you want to learn more? Follow Threat Talks to stay up to date on the topic of cybersecurity.